Welcome to another episode of Otherworldly Encounters with Mike and Brian. How you doing today, bud?
Doing good, man. You?
Oh, no complaints. How was your weekend?
It was a long one. There was a lot of golf, a lot of beers consumed. I'm glad we have some guests with us today because I need somebody to help fill the conversation because I'm struggling forming sentences and keeping things on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, so my weekend's pretty, I don't know, it's pretty chill. Played golf this morning.
There you go.
Actually with one of our guests here, so it went pretty well. Happy with my 83.
Nice.
It's better than our 90s and stuff that we've talked about in the past, so We're happy with that. All right, on today's episode, we have Holly and we have Justin. So I'll let Holly go first and just do a little introduction, just talk a little bit about what we're going to be discussing today.
Well, a lot of things today, but mostly metaphysical, esotericism. I personally know a lot about like astrology. I'm very into witchcraft. So I think you might find that kind of interesting. It might play into your spiritual funky side. So
I'm definitely interested in the witchcraft stuff. I mean, we were talking before this, especially like voodoo, because I have a buddy who lives in Louisiana, and going down there, if you go to New Orleans, Baton Rouge, or wherever, or Pierre Part, there is voodoo around, right? So it's like, I'm always cautious of who I'm piss off when I'm down there, because the last thing I want is some voodoo doll made of me and someone just pricking the shit out of it. So we're good. But all right. So thank you, Holly. Now we have Justin.
Yeah. My name's Justin. I will talk about some esoteric things here, metaphysical. My wife, Holly, knows a lot more about astrology. But that's one thing that kind of brought us together was the astrology aspect of it. And just the mental side of, that's one thing. I'm no expert by any means. I think it's all fascinating. I probably know 1% of the knowledge that's out there. But hopefully today maybe I can bring something that'll just get your mind maybe thinking, just open it up, and we'll see where it goes.
So what got you into that, Justin?
Yeah.
Like, where'd you start, or why? How did that come to be?
So like I was talking to Brian here, always search it. So I'm an Aquarius, so I'm always, I think I'm very in my head, like I am right now. So this is, just natural for me, very awkward, socially awkward. So this is, the way it is. But, so just trying to find the truth of, I grew up a Christian, went to church for, 20 some years. My stepdad is a ex-pastor. My son went to a private school, private Christian school. So I grew up in that. So I've studied, the Bible and just looking for answers. So as I stumbled across a couple different things and looking for the truth of everything, it kind of led me down this path. So, like I said, still looking for answers. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to today.
Yeah.
We always talk about the big three questions. Are we alone? What happens when we die? And where do we come from? And that all fits within the same kind of realm. So,
and it's great
relevant
that this is coming after our last episode with Pastor Judd, because that we tried to talk, religion and paranormal and extraterrestrial, and if they're intertwined at all. So I think that this is going to be a really good episode that's going to tie in really well with that. But I guess before we do that, what are you drinking? What is your
pretty excited.
today?
You brought this over for me because I was talking it up. I appreciate a good original Coors banquet beer from time to time. So looking forward to this one.
And so we're kicking it old, since we're going to kick it old school. I'm going with the old Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Classic.
So it'll be good. All right, I think it's ready. There we go.
Nice.
All right.
Very nice.
And this is that kicks off the podcast. Now we get
Ready.
this. Now we're getting started. All right.
Now we're ready.
All right. So Holly, how did you get into? You talked about witchcraft. Is that the best way of saying it?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say it's similar to Justin's experience. I grew up in a very religious household. My grandpa was a pastor. I did multiple mission trips throughout high school for my church. And I guess I always kind of felt like something was off. Like church for me personally was never that personal because I felt like I couldn't connect to what everyone else was excited about because I had so many questions. And Justin and I actually talked about this, I think it was last night. We were talking about how like when we were in church and in our youth, like I went up to my pastor one time and I asked him like, if God created everything, who created God? And he was like, oh, we don't ask those kind of questions here, and he was very standoffish. So, and that's just my personal experience with church, not to speak for anyone else. But I think that moment really got me thinking like, what are the answers? Why do people push it off? Why is it not okay to ask certain questions? And so I think that's what kind of like spearheaded my spirituality, and just trying to like reconnect to nature because I feel like that's where it starts.
So would this be kind of in line with like Wiccan, right?
Yeah, like the Wiccan religion. Yeah. Wiccan. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. I had a guy.
You're right. Absolutely.
I had a guy in boot camp, my rack mate. I'll throw out his last name, Scapaci. I don't know how many there are out there, but he was into that. And on Sundays, he would get his prayer mat, and he would do his thing. And back then, when I'm 19, 20 years old, I thought it was the weirdest thing ever, so, yep. But, yeah. All right. So it kind of aligns with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that is the best way to describe like Wiccan. It's not necessarily religion, but it's centered around, like witchcraft and spirituality and using rituals, to manifest. And that's really like what I use it for.
So when you say manifest, like what do you mean by manifest?
So like making your dreams happen. Something Justin and I both talk about a lot is like, it's not going to happen until you know it's going to happen. So for example, like a lot of people who win the lottery, they picture it before it even happens. They know, hey, I'm going to win it. This is my ticket. Or maybe they didn't know and they said, hey, I'm just going to pop in the gas station. I had a feeling today. But one of my favorite stories of lottery winning is this woman who played, what's the song? I want money, lots and lots of money. She played that before she bought her lottery ticket and she won like, I don't know, like $1 billion or something. It was crazy. She won like the big Mega Million jackpot. And she put it down to listening to that song. So, yeah.
So the part of it is just basically if you can project your thoughts, right? Like if you can will it, right? Like I want to win $1 million type thing, and it could eventually happen.
Yeah. So your thoughts 100% create your reality. If you're thinking negative thoughts, if you start your day thinking, I hate work, it's going to be a crap day, everything is going to be horrible, it's going to be horrible. So something I do every day when I go into work is tell myself it's going to be a great day. I'm going to have amazing patients. I'm going to have, an amazing time with my nurses. We're going to have fun. And that's what I tell myself. And I feel like most days it works. It's very rare it doesn't. And when I have a bad day, it's usually because I woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
Yeah, we definitely have the wrong side of the bed. That happens a lot over here.
Okay. Yeah. So it's interesting, Holly, when you're talking about that, and I'm thinking back to when we talked to Judd the other day, and some of the topics that we talked about is kind of a belief system. And is it real? Is it not? And that's one of the things that we had the conversation with Judd about is how do you wrap your arms around something that you can't physically touch, and you just have to have some faith and belief. And I don't know, kind of power of positivity piece is what you're talking to.
Absolutely. Yep.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So when you're talking about like rituals, what does that look like? I mean, do you have the cauldron? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I wish I'm saving up for one.
Help our listeners understand what that means.
So it can be an everyday thing, Something I love to do is write a manifestation on like a piece of paper and put it under my pillow and just sleep with it for however long it takes. And a good example of that is when I met my husband, I had the biggest crush on him, but I was like too nervous to confront him, and you know how it goes. So I wrote down a list of my dream man, and, you know, subconsciously I have this huge crush on him. I'm thinking of him while I write this list. I put it under my pillow. I'd say like 2 months later, he asked me out, and we're married now. So
That's awesome.
There you go.
and yeah, everything on the list I put down was him to a T, like kind, strong, spiritual, even, you know, like I put on my paper that I wanted a man who was into the same things I was, like spiritually. And it just, I had no idea he was even into like metaphysics and astrology. And when we went on our first date, it was like, bam. Yeah.
Just had that connection.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, I never knew this about you. It's everything I wanted in a person. And you were in front of me the whole time. So
would you say,
cool.
it was a spiritual connection?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So Justin, let's go over to you for a minute.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
yeah, same exact thing. So that's what I'm going to talk about is same thing. So like our minds, our visions become reality. So I know you had Pastor, is it
Judd?
Judd was on. Like I said, I grew up a Christian. I think our whole society, religion, politics is all to divide us. And one thing I've learned, and I believe it to be true, is that we're all connected. We're all together. We're all part of this energy that we're all together. So when I look at other people, I see myself. We're all connected. So same thing. I manifested Holly. So I went through a very bad divorce at the time. In my mind, started creating, okay, who do I want my next life partner to be? Who do I want my wife to be? I want her to be my best friend. I want her to be beautiful. I want her to be kind and sweet and have this spiritual connection and think like I do. And so we can go through this world together. And, you know, there's lots of husbands and wives that and people tell me this all the time. They're like, "I'll just give it time. You'll start to, you know, you're in your honeymoon phase." Well, Holly and I are we work hard at our marriage, and we continue to. And so, but to go back to that, I manifested her. She was in my mind. I didn't know, you know, she was even out there, but if I had to write down everything that I want in a life partner, it's her. So it was in my mind of kind of the person, and here she is. So
So is that, does it fall in line with your beliefs that we were just talking about? Like how do you say that again? It's the
like the metaphysical,
or the
esoteric. Yeah. So I've got the Kabbalion book here.
That's his personal Bible, the Kabbalion.
The Kabbalion. So I would encourage.
You'll have to check it out.
I would encourage anybody to read it. It's probably one of the first, if you're going to get into esotericism, into the occult, Wiccan, witchcraft. It's all got negative connotation. Like it, and a lot of that comes from Christianity and religions. And it's because I believe they want to take the power back. The power needs to be in ourselves and not outside ourselves. So that's what this is all about, is bringing the power to that. We can do anything and create everything that we're looking at right now, a human created out of our minds from everything in here. So this whole world is created from our mind, and that's what this is about. So I use it to manifest and to create the life I want to have. So,
Justin, just to piggyback, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to mix up your names. Edit.
Oh no, I'm leaving that bitch in there.
So to piggyback off what Justin was saying, we listen to a lot of Neville Goddard podcasts. He's a great speaker, or I don't know, we call it teacher of metaphysics and manifestation. He talks a lot about God is within yourself. We are God. Your mind is the most powerful thing on the planet, it starts from within you. So we're each individually God, essentially, is what I believe he's saying.
Yes.
And you have the power within you to create the life you want through manifestation because you are God.
And Neville Goddard uses the Bible. He says the Bible is, and I believe it too. I've got some things here I'll go over, but the Bible is written in a way in parables and codes that it's talking about the human imagination and that it can bring your life, the life that you want, to reality. So yeah, Neville Goddard is awesome. So we study and listen to him a lot.
So I guess when it comes to Christianity and the Bible that you have here, so if you compare the Bibles, like where are they different?
So the Kabbalion is, I wouldn't even say it's a Bible. So there's 7 principles, and number 1 is mentalism, 2 is correspondence, 3 is vibration, 4 is polarity, 5 is rhythm, 6 cause and effect, 7 is gender. So the first one, mentalism, which we kind of been talking about that. But these are all like universal laws that and that's what the book goes into, is covering each law and how it corresponds to life and reality. So that's why I look at it as my Bible I'm just trying to create my reality.
So how does this, do we call it a faith? Do we call it a religion? Do we call it, like, what would you call this? Just,
I would call it just a way of thinking. I study another thing that's along this is Stoicism. It's just a way of thought. Stoicism is more, I use it when I'm going through bad times. It's a way to, just another way of thinking. It's not a religion. So yeah, it's just all about your mind.
Like guiding principles?
Yeah. Just ways to manifest, the vibration. So like, Nikola Tesla, I think I want a Tesla. Hopefully I like this ride right here, but I want a Tesla, but Nikola Tesla. So he said, if you want to find the secrets to the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So like Holly's more into like the witchcraft and stuff. It all goes. So we're all vibrating. We're all energy beings. And so so I'm an Aquarius. I'm an empath. I feel people's frequencies and their energies a lot. And sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's not very great. Especially if you're at a work environment and somebody's in a bad mood, you kind of feel that. And so you try to help them, but at the same time, it can kind of weigh on you too. So, I know it sounds woo-woo crazy, but.
So where does that align with like extraterrestrial paranormal? Like, is it like, does it embrace it? Does it kind of like shy away from it? Like what are your personal beliefs about extraterrestrial paranormal, and do they align with what you're?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so I started, I listen to your podcast. I love it. Bob Lazar, that's probably the first guy I started to kind of look into, Area 51, all that stuff. So yeah, the paranormal, it's all, I think there's other dimensions, there's other timelines. I think it all kind of blends together. The metaphysical, astrology, it's all encompassing.
And Holly, does it align with the extraterrestrial paranormal? Does it align with your witchcraft and because I believe you said you're into like tarot cards, like, or is it just called tarot?
Tarot, like tarot reading. Yeah, I say it definitely plays in. Like, I guess extraterrestrials is like a personal opinion. It's hard to like convince someone that there's other life out there, but I feel like it's a given, so. I feel like no matter what religion I followed, I would definitely still believe that aliens were out there. 'Cause it just seems too ridiculous to think we're the only planet that has life.
Like statistically improbable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Literally on Mars, they found, I forget, it was a certain type of crystal, but it's only present when there's sulfur. So it was like a huge discovery a couple weeks ago. We'll have to look it up. But like the Mars rover cracked open a rock and discovered the whole planet is covered in this sulfur. But I think that just goes to show like we have components of our Earth everywhere. You know what I mean? Other planets, you know, so I definitely think that alien life is out there, 100%.
We were talking with Judd last week, and one of the things I was talking to him about was Christopher Bledsoe, who's an interesting guy. He's a believer. He's had multitudes of extraterrestrial encounters, but in his mind, he believes it to be divine entities. He doesn't think it's extraterrestrials. He thinks it's some kind of angel visiting him, which was a concept that I'd never really spent any time thinking about, but it made for interesting conversation when we're talking about the intersection of like religion and extraterrestrial life and paranormal. How does that all tie together? And the original big three questions, like what happens when we die? Are we alone? Where do we come from? No one can answer those. So like sometimes you have to broaden your horizon and have weird conversations to open your mind to new things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to piggyback off of what Judd said, Judd was saying that essentially the angels were visiting, and that's kind of like the alien life form. It's just angels visiting. So I believe that, you know, we're all energy, and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. That's something we all learn in science class, right? So I definitely think our energy from our souls, even after we die, has to go somewhere. And it could jump timelines even, you know, possibly. So if we're thinking of aliens as like angels, we could even say it's like previous lives or future lives coming back to visit the one you're in now. So that deep.
It was interesting. You said that the spirit has to go somewhere. So do you feel that obviously if you're a good person, then, because I mean, if you think of the paranormal part, right, where people are seeing like shadow figures, EVPs, that type stuff, but you also have like the demonic side of it. Do you think that if someone has just like a super negative entity that, or energy, do you think that when they do pass, their spirit is just kind of falls into like the way that they felt their entire life or the way they ended up?
That's a very interesting point. I definitely think so. I feel like spirits can get trapped on Earth for multiple reasons, though. It doesn't have to be necessarily because you were like a bad person, you know, even though it could be. Like maybe you were really malicious and hateful, so now your spirit is stuck here until you can reincarnate and learn your lesson again and again and again until you're a better person. Or you could look at it as someone had a really traumatic life, and that trauma was so deep down in their soul that's what stuck them there. That's what I believe, because you see a lot of like ghost children, and I don't think those kids are like evil. You know what I mean? Like most of the kids who are ghost children were killed in horrible ways. So I think it's the trauma that keeps them bonded to the earth. But yeah.
But there's also the thought that when it comes to like ghost children, that they're actually demonic, and that the demons use them because they try to get onto our feel side, right? We see kids, typically we have like, we open ourselves up to them and just say, oh, how you doing? You know, we want them to be happy or whatever, right? So, but when on the other flip side of it is the demonic side, they use that to lure people in so that then they can use their energy to take over their body possessions, et cetera.
Right. And I think that ties back in perfectly to like what we were talking about earlier, like hoodoo and voodoo. Can
you explain the difference between hoodoo and voodoo?
Oh gosh.
If you can.
I shouldn't, because hoodoo is a closed practice, and so is voodoo necessarily. So I can tell you what I know slightly. It, you know, originates in the South primarily because of slave trade, you know, so African traditions started hoodoo and voodoo. So as a white person, I try to avoid all that because I feel like me trying to interfere in a different culture's practices would probably anger something I don't want to anger. So if I'm being honest, I haven't done a whole lot of research on voodoo itself. But it is essentially like witchcraft, using spells and rituals to like manifest or even hurt people, which is something I don't do as a Wiccan. I don't like do spells to hurt people. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
no, that makes sense. I mean, but again, I think it just comes down to the type of person you are, right? Because there's always going to be somebody out there, and I'm going to throw out always, that's either toes the line of good and evil, is evil, or is naturally a good person and occasionally just screws up every once in a while, right? But I feel that there are people out there that want to use you, whether hoodoo, voodoo, wicked, or whatever, in nefarious ways. But that's just like, think of a cult.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? So now you've got Christianity that's turned in, that you have people set up a cult, and then they're using that for wicked ways as well, right? So I think it crosses all the different
Absolutely.
religions when it comes to whether it's good or bad. It's just, I think, the interpretation of the individual.
Yeah.
Well, and like Justin was talking, like life principles, right? What do you carry with you that separates you from everybody else, or that maybe the better point is that brings you together?
Going back to the witchcraft, so walk us through, like, now are you talking like herbs and stuff? You go to a shop?
Absolutely. Oh my! It all starts with the herb.
Seriously? I mean, is there a shop?
You know me.
Is there a shop, online shop?
Yeah.
Is there really?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So,
Okay.
do you talk about drugs on your show?
We talked about psychedelics with Judd last week.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we
So-
are now, apparently. Let's go.
So,
Roll with it.
so a little Wiccan. I mean, this is even a holistic thing. Put lavender in your weed and roll it up and smoke it. It's great for when you go to bed. It relaxes you. It really calms you down. Lavender is great for relaxation. And as a Wiccan, like a big part of my spirituality and rituals is, you know, like harvesting herbs like sage or lavender, mugwort. That's really good to put in your weed. You can smoke that and you'll have...
What is that? What's mugwort?
Mugwort. It'll give you crazy dreams. Crazy.
Is it?
Sounds like something out of Harry Potter.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Like coming out of Hogwarts.
It's no, it's a plant. Like you could grow it in your backyard. I actually have before.
So if you don't put it with another substance,
You could smoke it on its own. You could.
does it, and it gives you some type of like psychedelic? Is this like a really?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
And I think that's where my spirituality starts is I try to just reconnect with nature. And I feel like if I can get my medicine from nature, expand my mind through nature, then I'm following the path the earth wants me to lead, and I'm closer to the earth because of it.
Yeah, I mean, that actually ties in really well with your question too, Pastor Judd, last week was, you know, because we also talked about, if you think of the Native American culture, they would go on a spiritual journey. And the way they did that was by smoking peyote, right? Right. And now you could have the argument, well, it wasn't a spiritual journey. It was just because he was tripping, right, from this plant or whatever they're smoking. But you could also argue, well, maybe, but I feel that you go to a certain place because that's where maybe your spirit wants you to go, and that's the spiritual journey. Like you don't necessarily choose the trip, or I would say trip or whatever, but I think it's maybe more like internal, like your aura, whatever you're putting out is maybe that journey. I don't know.
Absolutely.
I think there's something to it. And we talked about with Judd last week, the book, The Immortality Key, The Road to Ulysses, where these people were going to do this religious pilgrimage, but they were really drinking wine that was made with barley that had ergot and the LSD derivative, and they were tripping. But to them, they were experiencing God. And so if you're in the mindset that this is what it is and this is what I'm experiencing, it's 100% real to you, whether it is or not. So from a belief system and like a life principle standpoint, that there's no way you can deny that that's real.
Yeah. I mean, it's just your individual reality for the most part, right? Like what you want. Like I've had my own spiritual connections with different things, right? Whether it's paranormal or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I just think in that moment, whatever the place that you're at, and if you're, you know, whether you have something else on board, whether it's alcohol, drugs, whatnot, I do think that potentially could fuel it, you know. But I think that what you guys are talking about too is just with excluding those two things, you can still find that spiritual path.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Whatever. So I get it. I understand that.
Yeah. I think there's something there. There's two things that I think are really interesting. I'd like to get your guys' take on. One is Stephen Greer, and he's this medical doctor that quit, had this experience with extraterrestrials, and now he runs this group, and the group will get together. It's no drugs, no alcohol. They do deep meditation, and they connect with these beings, and they have videos of these folks sitting in a circle. Orbs show up, and they experience whatever the interaction is between them and these beings. I think it's a really fascinating idea that I give just enough credence to that I don't want to do it in case it works, right? But then on the same tone, it's easy to write that off. And I think that's the problem with so much of this. It's easy to write off like, oh, this person's crazy, like get the hell out of here. But then in the same vein, the government has previously hired remote viewers to go in and do remote viewing of base locations. And it's had a success rate. It's like 60-some%. So over 50%. So like, you can't tell me that there's not something there. I don't know what it is, but that goes back to those big three questions. And like, what are the things we can learn and educate ourselves with that maybe helps us get closer to the answers?
But I think too, even though you're meditating, I mean, I've tried to meditate and my mind just doesn't, I'm just, I think it's something you have to practice, but my mind right now doesn't allow me to relax all that much. But I'm just saying, like, to what my point was before, you show up to that circle, you're meditating, right? You're in deep thought. I just think that whatever shows up or whatever you see, you're manifesting from whatever emotions that you may have had prior, right? So I think, because it could be, with the four of us sitting here, we see some orbs. You might see something, maybe that orb looks completely different than what I'm seeing. You know what I'm saying? So, but I don't know. Well, I guess we're going to have to call that guy and go out there and do it. We have to experience that, I think.
No, that's really interesting. And if you think about it, like you're manifesting it, maybe the whole group is manifesting the same thing at the same time. And that's why they're experiencing this like crazy, orbs floating around. They're all kind of focusing on the same subject of focusing on meeting extraterrestrials, and then they meditate on it. I definitely think it could work. Like, I'm not doubting that something happens when they do that,
Well, Brian really wants to see a UFO UAP. So if you can just really will that tonight, like we can go out back.
The energy from the four of us.
I think we can do it. Honestly, I think if we talk about it enough tonight, we'll go outside and see one. Yeah.
Okay.
Or on the way home, I think we might see one.
Okay.
I'm holding you to that.
Good.
Brian's going to be a little kid in a candy store.
Hey, man, I want to see it firsthand.
I do too. Talk about it. Talk about it.
I've been talking about it for a long time.
Keep going.
All right,
write it on a note, put it under your pillow, and it'll work.
So so I'll dive into the text I sent you. Right. So we recorded our podcast last Tuesday. I believe that's when I texted you. Later that evening or that night, after I got home, took dog out, and I'm sitting there and I just start to look up, and all of a sudden there was this big flash of light, bright light. I mean, it was to the point where like it made you squint. And there was no cars around. We live out in the middle of nowhere, right? So there was no cars. But I look up and you can see, Ryan's belt, and typically have 3 stars. But then I had a 4th one, and it was bright. But then all of a sudden it was bright, and then it just vanished. It just went out. I'm not saying it's a UFO, UAP, whatever. But it was just interesting. And it was after we talked about the podcast. It was that night. Like, we were talking about spirituality, UFOs, paranormal, whatever. And it's just later that evening I saw it. And talking with you today, Justin, Saturday. You saw something similar, but it was on Saturday.
Yep. And I told Ollie that. I said, did you see that? It was like this really bright light, and it was just like a star, but a lot brighter than a star. So I looked at it, focused on it, waiting for it to do something. And then it just like, instead of like, because she's like, was it a shooting star? And I was like, no, it didn't. It just disappeared.
Yeah, it didn't move. It was just stationary.
Yeah.
So being that you saw it on Saturday, I probably should go back and just look at some, like, I don't know, reports to see if there was any type of, I don't know, solar flares or, I don't know. You got to try to debunk it, right?
Right.
I mean, we wouldn't be on doing this podcast if we believed everything, even what we're actually seeing.
It's like we talked about with Travis Walton. 90% of the stuff we hear is bullshit, right? But it's that 10% that's, you're like, man, is there something there? I want to read more about it. I want to talk about it.
And that's another that's one reason I wasn't even going to talk about it, because I'm like, this could fall into the bullshit category, but I know what I saw. So then I started feeling bad for Travis Walton, right? Because I'm like, that's his reality, man. Like, maybe that actually did happen in his mind. Maybe he was on a spiritual journey.
Maybe. Seems like he also had a contract that needed paid conveniently at the same time.
Yeah, that was a money grab.
Yeah.
So,
have you guys had any personal encounters?
Have not. No, I welcome it. It would be awesome.
what about on the paranormal side of it? I mean, with the way that you guys, because I mean, you're opening yourself up, right? Like, the one thing about paranormal, it feeds off energy, and you guys obviously are putting out a lot of energy with your current faith. So that, I guess I would assume that they would, if you lived in an area, I mean, I don't know. You look at, if you watch paranormal shows, right? They go to a house and you're like, that motherfucker's haunted, right? You just feel it.
Right.
You can walk into a house and feel that the energy is changed inside of a house. Yeah. But if you're not living in one of those places, then you may not have that feeling. But
well, I guess I had both experiences. So my house, my parents built it themselves. Growing up, never had anything paranormal happen in there. Always felt safe. But my best friend, her house, the second I walk in, it is like chills down your back. And there was so many times where we were like home alone together, just like drinking in her house, in her kitchen, and we heard, like a whisper from the dining room or something, or
like a disembodied
creaky
voice.
steps, in her house, it's like the walls were paper thin. So you could hear just about everything. And she swears that it's haunted. Like, she would tell me up and down, like, oh yeah, my grandma told me it was haunted. She inherited it from her mom. They said it was haunted. We hear cupboards slamming in the middle of the night. So I was always like terrified to sleep over at her house, but I was never like, pestered by anything, bothered by any spirits.
So does the Wicked religion, because I'm assuming it's classified as a religion, right? The Wicked.
I mean, I guess you could.
I would put it this way: the Marine Corps offered it as a religion. So if they're saying, "Yeah, I'm going to go with it," just or it was just an excuse for somebody to not have to do field day on a Sunday. It was okay. So that was one of those things, because I mean, when you go to boot camp, you have pretty much every religion that you want to go participate on a Sunday. And when I went, I wasn't super spiritual. I went to Baptist church one time. I went to, I went to a Catholic church one Sunday. I used it as just getting the fuck away from my drill instructors for a day, a couple hours. But within Wiccan, is there anything like, okay, so if you think on the Catholic Church, they have exorcism, right, where they can, if someone is possessed, but for Wicked, do they have any type of rituals where you can go in and like cleanse a house? Like, I know you have sage, right? And I know that sage is used to cleanse. So could you go into your friend's house and try to rid it of spirits?
Yeah, definitely. You have to open all the windows, make sure you're not trapping anything in, top to bottom. Use your sage it out, say some, manifestations or, spirit, your spirit's not welcome in here anymore. I don't know, something silly like that, but it'll work, just by using your willpower and your energy to kind of protect yourself and protect your home. You could totally cleanse a house.
So
but also it depends on how intense the spirit is.
So there's no like defined, like ritual, like it's just basically however you're feeling. Like, is there anything written like where you have to?
I probably have like 10 different books with different rituals for like banishing evil spirits. But I think the best way to do it is to make your own. You know what I mean? Because it has to come from within you, So, but as long as you believe what you're reading and saying out loud, then it should work, like fully believing it. But I think the easiest way to do it would be making it yourself and then repeating it out loud.
Do you feel like if it was proven without a doubt that either extraterrestrials existed or paranormal ghosts are real, that confirmation would that challenge that belief system, or would it reinforce it?
I feel like it would reinforce it, because it would prove that there's things out there that everyone will say is not real, not going to happen, impossible. And if you could prove that those things exist, then I think anything's possible, really.
Okay. And do you feel like that would draw more people into kind of this belief system, either one, for collaboration?
Absolutely. I feel like if aliens, landed on Earth today and they were like, hey, nice to meet you, I think everyone would rethink their belief systems and start to maybe embrace more of like esotericism or, just spirituality in general.
Let's talk to what esotericism is, like for people that don't know what that is.
Well, just to piggyback, I think that you look it up. I think there's tons of information out there that we have seen encounters. I think not to use the government or whoever it is kind of suppressing that knowledge a little bit because it would challenge Christianity and all these beliefs.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just kind of hidden there. So I think there's lots of information there's stuff out there. You guys have done a great job covering a lot of it, but that's why I think it hasn't went mainstream and why they don't release it is because it would maybe test everybody's faith a little bit. So, but yeah, I mean, I think Mike, do you guys study astrology at all? Do you know much about astrology?
Mm-mm.
I mean, I don't say I study astrology. I mean, I love looking at the stars. When I was in Iraq, it was one of the things I looked forward to each day because, there you didn't have any light pollution, right? I mean, you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's no lights. And when I say you can see the Milky Way, holy shit, like it's what you would see in photos. I mean, it was very vibrant, right? You see it like unlike here, in Ohio, you walk outside and depending on where you're at, you'll see a little bit of it. Like you can tell maybe where it's at, but it's completely different when there's no light. I mean, when it's just pitch black. So, but yeah, I enjoy the astrology. I don't like sit there and study about it or anything like that, but I do appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. I'm Big Dipper, Little Dipper, and Orion's belt. That's about all I got.
All right, there you go.
Well, I'll say this. That's more of astronomy. Astronomy has to do with the placement of the stars and the planets. Astrology is how the stars and planets affect us.
All right, well, we're just dum-dums, all right? I'm glad you did this.
That's why we're here to talk about.
Way to call us out. Justin, you're a dum-dum. I was following your lead.
Well, let me ask you, what's your birthday, Mike?
Can you just not look at me and tell what my sign is? Now, the reason I say that
I have a couple guesses.
is because when I was in my master's program and over Zoom, she was able she could tell exactly what my sign was and just list it out. So
I kind of get Scorpio vibes, but I can tell it's not right.
It's
just
not
by your
right.
Expression. Yeah.
Well, you got to do me next. I'm curious now.
Oh my gosh, you're Cancer. Damn it. I'm rusty.
boy, this podcast just went down real
You
quick.
can't believe anything she says.
Yeah. All right, so September.
Oh, you're a Virgo. Okay. Well, what day?
13th.
Yeah, you're a Virgo. Yep.
Well, didn't they change? Isn't there now? They're saying like the signs may have changed a little bit. Now they're saying
There
that
was
you
a
could be
13th sign, and they erased it. If I'm correct, Justin.
I have heard that, but it wouldn't align with some of the other things I've seen. So
I'm just saying like the birth months, right? So September, if you think of September being Virgo, they actually moved like the first half of Virgo actually falls into what's the one before?
August.
Yeah, but what sign is that?
Leo
or something like that. Like you can be a combination, combination of two.
Yeah. So my brother, he's born on the 23rd of August. He's a cusper. So he exhibits a lot of Leo traits. Like he looks like a lion. Like he's got the blonde hair, big bushy red beard, super tall, super muscular, looks like a lion, like a Leo, but he's on the cusp. So he also has a lot of like Virgo traits, like hard on himself.
I feel that.
Hardworking. Yeah.
I mean, I can be.
Just give me all the positive ones.
Yeah. I don't want to hear any negative shit. Just boost my ego a little bit, will you?
So Justin, tell me about this. Like what does this mean and how is this important to you?
Okay. So esoteric knowledge, it's hidden knowledge. So, and I think all the elites are using it. I think, the Masons, all these elite level people know this hidden knowledge and want to keep it suppressed. So we stay dumb and don't have any power. We look for an outside source, but our power is within. So this is what kind of probably led me down. This is, I stumbled across this. This would be considered like a hidden esoteric knowledge, would be that Jesus. So Christianity is like one of the newest religions. So, you have probably the Egypt was probably one of the oldest civilizations. Like you have all this, knowledge that comes from Egypt, and, so it's passed down. So Holly and I talked about this. Like if you're in Asia, Buddha's your God. You never get to see, you don't know or know about Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. So you're going to hell. That's kind of what the church has taught me almost. Mm-hmm. It's like, so it's like,
you have one way of thinking and that's it.
The Holy War has happened, and we know all too well what happened with that. Right?
Yeah. So
divisive thoughts.
Yeah. So I just feel like it, and Holly and I talked about this. It just didn't sit right in my spirit. Like this doesn't seem right to me. Like what I've been told, I've 20 years of being in the church, like something is off. I don't know what it is. I run across, and not to put down Christians or anything, but sometimes they can be the most judgmental people. And I'm like, so so this kind of led me down this. It was when I started to see that there was a pattern of that a lot of these religions are based upon astrology. So, and it's about sun worship. Jesus saw about the sun, the rising sun. And it's really talking about the stars when you look at everything. So some of these things is, like Jesus was born in Bethlehem and announced by a star in the east. 3 kings followed and located the Savior. Sirius is a star. And then the three stars that are, the Orion's belt, they're considered the 3 kings. That's kind of the story that goes along in the Bible. So the winter solstice, the sun so on December 22nd, the sun stops moving south for 3 days, and it resides in the southern crux or the cross. And then on December 25th, it finally moves back up north and rises. So that's Jesus dying for 3 days, rising again on December 25th. If you go and look, there's so many of these religions that have common threads to them, and it's all based upon the stars. They're all seeing the same thing. They're all reporting the same thing. So it's like there's Horus, Mithra, Dionysus from Greece. They're all born from a virgin. They're born on December 25th. They're crucified, and then they resurrect on the 3rd day. So
all those names you mentioned, they all had the same fate.
Yes, all these gods of these religions have this common thread of a virgin birth, resurrecting on the 3rd day, like the sun does so I'm not great with astrology. That's why I say when I probably know 1% of this, it's a math subject. But when I saw this, it started to open my eyes. Like, okay, this makes more sense. Like back in the day, all they have is the astrology, the stars, and they're seeing the same thing. They're reporting the same thing. And that's what the story is. Now it's been preached into a religion, a cult, whatever, and it's all to keep us powerless. So this is all to bring the power back to ourselves. And that's what I think the elite are doing and using. And I think that's, you look at like Chinese medicine, we have like 7 chakras, meditation, all these things kind of blend together. It's the metaphysical, the esoteric knowledge. It's a wormhole that if you go down, it's crazy. But
yeah, I mean, I have, there was a friend of mine I used to work with. She was really big into her chakra and crystals and her third eye and all that stuff. Right. So, before we started doing this podcast, because we talk about all kinds of stuff, I would have thought that was weird as shit. But now I'm just like, kind of cool.
Well,
I wish I knew more about it.
Historical context too is you're talking about like solstice events. Like we're talking about civilizations we don't know anything about, and like Serpent's Mound in southeastern Ohio. The point of the tongue falls on the summer solstice every day. Now, was that to worship some being or entity? Maybe, maybe not. Or it was like, here's where we're at in the harvest. You better get ready to harvest in X number of weeks, or prepare for winter based on something. But like same thing, like Egyptian pyramids lined up exactly true north. How does that happen?
Right.
Like, how are you so advanced? Well, you're using the stars to navigate by boat, to do all these things that we've thrown away.
Right.
I mean, it just goes on to what I've said, I don't know how many podcasts ago, is like, I really truly believe we're the dum-dums. Like, I don't think that our civilization now is as smart as our ancestors were.
I agree.
Yeah.
I truly believe that we're the dum-dums.
I don't know. It's so weird. Sometimes I think about this, like with the Amish doing no technological aspects to their lives. It's interesting to me because we constantly advance technology, but like for what purpose? To get faster communications, to get better? I don't know that I really need any of that,
Right.
but we do it like we're like ants following in a line. Like we don't really know why we do it, but we do it.
Well, okay. So the movie Ants, I don't know if you guys have ever saw
I love
this.
that movie.
But all right, so they're all gathering food for the winter, and they're heading to that stump, right? And a damn twig falls in, and they all freak the fuck out because they don't know what to do, because they don't think. They're not free thinkers, right? So now when you talk about technology, what do we do when our internet goes out? We freak the fuck out. Like, holy shit, I need to work. I can't stream something. I can't look something up. So the Amish have it going on, man. They're not reliant on the government,
Right.
you know? So, but we are. In a roundabout way, we're reliant on other big tech, big companies, whatever, because they fill our day-to-day needs.
Yeah. I've often thought, and Justin, you were talking about it, kind of like, what's the cover up and why are we covering stuff up? I totally believe that we've captured craft. Like I'm 100%, not 100% in on Bob Lazar, but there's too many coincidences for me to write him off.
Right.
And for me, the question isn't like, do I believe it? The question is, why am I not hearing more about it? And that's what I don't understand. And like, it goes back to, where did fiber optics come from? Well, we don't know. It just kind of showed up. Same thing like resistors. Where did that come from? Like, I think we're back engineering this shit to create whatever this is, but for a purpose that we don't understand.
I can almost, I don't want to say I almost guarantee, fuck it, I'll say it. I almost guarantee the shit that we have now, the government's already had in place somewhere 5 or 10 years before the civilian population even knew it was around. So think about Bob Lazar, the bone scan, right? Like he walked in, he had to put his hand on it to scan the actual bones, not fingerprints. And everybody thought he was full of shit. And then, but back in the, 10 years ago or whatever, all of a sudden they exist. They're like, well, that's weird.
A lot of coincidences.
Yeah. Oh, so we're asking them the question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
How many coincidences does it take for a coincidence to be a coincidence?
Ooh.
I think we went with
6 was the number we came
6.
up
We just
with.
came. That we just pulled that
feels
out.
high.
I would have said 3.
I was going to say 3.
3.
Okay.
I say 3 times a charm. Like if it happens 3 times in a row,
Definitely. All right. Well, that's our new answer. 3
3.
for now.
So we kind of did a 90-degree there. So Justin, if we circle back to kind of what you were talking about with solstice events and some of these things, how does that play into either what you're reading or how are you applying that into your own kind of personal belief set?
So that's one thing that, as far as astrology, astronomy, those are things that I'm new to and that I'm new with Holly on. So she's teaching me a lot about that. So I welcome that. Like crystals, she's teaching me about that. I'm still trying to kind of learn that, but it makes sense. It's, there's quartz in all of our phones right now. Like it's very, energetic. Is that
A conductor?
a conductor?
That's what superconductor.
It's a superconductor.
Reading your mind.
Actually, I've got a ring that's a superconductor. So my wedding ring it's actually made from a superconductor, which I thought was super cool. So, but yeah, so those are things that I'm learning. Like as far as the crystals aspect, it's in the end, it's all trying to get better in our lives, to manifest the lives that we want, to help people, and try to. I just think that we've been, I think we have a lot more power and strength in our minds that we know. And a lot of people are looking outside the box or to another deity or something to kind of give that power to. And so that's where I'm coming with all this. So hopefully that answers your question, kind of.
So in most like ancient, I don't know if you want to say religions, or we talked about the pyramids or whatever, there was, hieroglyphics that depicted some type of extraterrestrial within the witch community, the Wiccan, and what you're talking about, Justin. Is there any pictures or anything in books that depict any type of like extraterrestrial being?
Oh gosh, well, absolutely. I'm trying to think about I'm trying to remember the name of it. So have you ever seen like the goat god? Everyone assumes it's like Satan. What's his name? Baphomet? Baphomet. Yeah. So you could say that's kind of like in that realm. But I think it's up to interpretation, because people can interpret it as like an evil symbol if you're using it for an evil symbol. But I feel like it's just another like mythical creature kind of. And that kind of also plays into like urban legends like Bigfoot or Mothman, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what you're describing with the goat is definitely satanic, right?
Yeah.
And I have a story about
Man with a goat head. That's what I'm thinking.
A satanic doo-wop group I watched once, but that's maybe a sidebar conversation. But good God, it was amazing. And I say amazing because it was weird as shit, and that's why I say amazing, because the people. It was just this is a whole different side subject there. But yeah, I went to a satanic doo-wop.
Oh my God.
Everybody's got to do it once.
I didn't even know what this was, man. I did research on this band. I'm like, all right, they're pretty kind of cool, whatever. And then
50s?
We get there, and this high priestess came out, and she's saying a satanic prayer, and she's got these little symbol bullshit. She's doing the thing. I'm like, and people were throwing up. I thought they were like, when we were walking in, they were
rock on.
They were like, it was like rock on, or there was like it was
Devil's horns.
Yep. It turned out to be the devil horns.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Apparently, if you open wide, that's like the Texas thing. You keep them closed, that's the devil horn type thing. I did not know this, but what you learn when you go to a doo-wop. And so
satanic.
This person comes out, this high priestess comes out, she does her thing, and now my wife is religious, very religious, right? She was ready to get. I'm like, no, we gotta play this shit out. I gotta see this now. This is like a train wreck, right? Like I gotta just watch it.
Yeah.
And they came out, and they're dressed like hardcore, like the heaviest heavy metal you can think of, right? And they come out, and all of a sudden it's like the doo-wop. And they're singing like heavy metal, but the doo-wop. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? I'm like, my mind is just mush because it's trying to process all this shit, right? Mm-hmm. But as the night went on, it got harder, right? Like hardcore Satan worship and everything. So we bowed out after this. Started like the third group because it got a little much. Huh. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was my experience with. I know we went down a little crazy rabbit hole there, but that was my experience with satanic.
There's definitely a fine line between Wiccan and being a Satanist. And I've heard people describe like being a Satanist as like, it's not evil. It's not worshiping the devil. I honestly have not looked into it enough to know what the hell they're doing, but I know that it's not like, I wouldn't relate it to, being a Wiccan like I am, or you like using witchcraft. Like you don't have to worship Satan to use witchcraft. It doesn't go hand in hand.
Well, I mean, I think witches in general just get a bad rap if you think of the Salem witch trials, right?
Ergot poisoning. I think they've confirmed that at this point.
Oh, really?
Harvest, the wheat harvest was contaminated. It got fungus on it. It got cold and then warmed up like a morning frost. They ate all of this wheat, and they were tripping, just like these people from Road to Ulysses, like the ancient Greeks. They were tripping, but I had no idea why. And so,
right. And I just think the name witch, right? Just it's a bad rap. Just because you're a witch doesn't mean you're a bad person. I mean, think of Wizard of Oz. You had
Yeah.
the good witch and you had the bad witch, right?
Yeah.
Nobody bitched about the good witch. It was like they all focused on the bad witch.
Right.
So I just think that, if people are more free thinkers, like I've mentioned numerous times, and just took a moment and just read up on stuff and just didn't go with the mainstream of witches are bad or whatever, right? So to all our listeners out there, be free thinkers.
I agree.
Do your research.
It's interesting to like go back and think too in time, like where did these ideas even come from?
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt
Go.
you, Brian. But to go off of what you were saying, like witches, I'd like to picture it like the Salem witch trials. I feel like a lot of that started with like female medicine men, kind of like they might have been women who knew how to heal people with plants, with things people in the church didn't understand. So they demonized them for doing maybe good deeds. And then that's kind of how I imagine it starting. It was probably like women who used home remedies to
Eat this piece
fix
of moldy
things.
bread.
Yeah, like,
nobody
oh,
knew there's penicillin
my
in it.
stranger, healed me and she gave me this little weed and yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it's just based
She's
out of
evil.
fear, right? So because if you think back during the Salem witch trials, right, medicine was pretty nil. Like they didn't have actual medicine. You just had home remedies. But if they had an actual doctor or medicine person there, they couldn't figure anything out. But Doris, 2 doors down, came up with her home remedy, and it finally cured something that their physician or doctor couldn't cure. Now that breeds fear, right? Well, this person is our doctor. Like he or she should have been able to fix this, but Doris down the road was able to do it. So it's got
to be crazy or evil.
it's got to be witchcraft, and now that person's no longer holy, and we have to go do whatever. So I think a lot of it, especially when it comes to religion, is just based off fear mongering. And that's why, like when we're sitting here talking about Wiccan and the other stuff that we've been talking about, like I'm open-minded. Am I going to go out and start doing it? No, but I'm open-minded to listening to it. And I don't think anything negative to either one of you, because that's what you believe in. Like you be you. Right. So, but I guarantee we're going to have more conversations on that in the future.
Oh yeah.
Especially when we're out on the golf course. Can you make me a crystal that's going to make me shoot in the 70s?
Probably. Yeah.
All right. I'm holding you to that.
I'll get you one.
Now, you might want to just in script, like I can't have X amount of beers while I'm on the golf course, and I don't want to override.
What do you feel like? We'll have to talk about it later, but think about what your problem is with golf, and I'll find the crystal for your golf problem. Okay?
I golf too much with your husband, and he makes me
That's
look
my-
bad.
that's
And
my problem.
And he makes me look bad. No, it's good.
Hey, I mean, look at the greatest player of all time, Tiger Woods. His dad was a military Green Beret, used military mind tricks on him. He had Jay Brunza hypnotize him, which kind of goes into everything I've been talking about. That's probably somewhere down the road that led me to here was Tiger and learning about his mom was a Buddhist. So I'm 9th grade studying Buddhism and learning about meditation and quieting the mind and staying in the present, which all apply to golf. Like you hit a bad shot, 3-putt for the 3rd time. Okay, let's stay in the present.
Did you notice he looked at me and said,
He didn't look at me.
3-putt for the 3rd time? Right.
So
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So that's where you got to get your mind right.
I felt that right here.
Yeah. So I thought it might hit home, but so you're getting your mind back to the present, and that's where a lot of this comes in. Is you're calming your mind, getting it back to the present, and so you can hit that next shot. That 3-putt you just had is gone. It's over. And that's one thing so Jay Brunza he was in the military as well and would put Tiger under hypnosis. And I think everybody would agree, not that Tiger is one of the greatest players, but his mind was head and shoulders above everybody. Like when he needed to make a putt, he'd make a putt. When he needed to hit a shot, he'd hit it. And it's just, his mind was on a different, like he had no fear, which is kind of how I wish everybody could live their lives. And I think that's what a lot of religions try to do, is put so much fear into people that they can't get past the fear of everything. And just imagine if you could live a life with like no fear, like just like you're getting ready to maybe 3-putt, but you don't have a fear of missing it. You're just I'm just gonna make it. I know I'm gonna make this, and you make it. So
some people would call that peace.
Yeah,
and so unfortunately, our sometimes our minds just don't allow us to have.
But that
peace.
can be worked on through meditation, through these metaphysical things.
So would you think?
Herbs.
So it almost sounds like yoga, meditation, and what you're talking about all are intertwined, right?
100%
in the spiritual world. So, I mean, if you're into yoga, I mean, then you should not have any issues with what we're discussing here tonight. I mean, to me, they're parallel to each other.
Absolutely. People look at yoga, it's like it's just an exercise, but there's different types of yoga where it can become more of a meditation type yoga. So yeah, like, I'm sure you guys have heard of the pineal gland. You can look at it's all like the Vatican's got pine cones everywhere.
The Pope's staff has a pine cone on top.
So the pineal gland it's basically like a receiver, like a radio antenna. So it's talking to these spiritual worlds. It's talking to our higher self. It's talking to
it also produces DMT.
Right. Yeah. So that Holly and I were just talking about that. I've never done it. That's one thing I would love to do for a spiritual thing is do DMT, because everybody I've heard that's done it, it's like you see the world in the energy when you stare at a tree, or you see it vibrating, and you actually see the world like it is, even though a lot of people would take it just a trip. And
so are we talking like shrooms?
No.
So for our listeners, what are we talking about here? What does that stand for?
DMT is dimethyltryptamine.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's a super hallucinogenic
Ayahuasca.
drug. But what's fascinating is that our body produces it naturally. A lot of people think that it's like that's what jumpstarts dreams, but nobody really knows why that exists. But if you do DMT, it's like hearing, and Rogan talks about it on his podcast all the time. It's like you're transported to a different dimension that you're terrified at first, but then you're like, I've been here. I know this. You talk to beings that aren't familiar, but are familiar. And is it all bullshit in your head, or is there something there? I don't know.
Right.
I call that a good Saturday night.
Right. But I think it all goes back to we're talking about not fringe science and fringe beliefs, but just because it's mainstream doesn't mean it's something that you can't believe in or put some research towards. Mm-hmm. And just taking a step back, we would have never been able to interpret hieroglyphics had we not found the Dead Sea Scrolls. Most of our history, we don't even know about because it doesn't exist, because holy wars have burned it, or it was just simply never written down. So I think we were always too fast to write something off as this is bullshit. It's fringe science. It's fringe beliefs. Crazy person. But we talk about with UFOs, 90% of what we hear about is probably bullshit, but there's 10% tucked in there somewhere that's worth a deeper dive.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I just find it very ironic that you go back and you look at some of these cave drawings or whatever, it depicts some type of alien life or a UFO or whatever.
Or celestial event.
A celestial event, right? So, but those are the things that couldn't be destroyed. So begs the question, well, what has been destroyed that could have answered a lot of different questions when it comes to extraterrestrial? There could have been, it's almost like the Holy Grail or whatever, right? It's does that stuff exist? If so, where's it at?
Well, forget about even extraterrestrial. We have no idea how the pyramids were built still. There was a recent study that thinks there was some fluid dynamics that helped push stones into place. But I'm sorry, that stone over the King's Chamber is 40 tons and it's 300 feet in the air. I don't give a shit how many wet logs or fluids you're pumping in someplace. You're not going to be able to do it. So
right.
What was going on? We just discovered Göbekli Tepe, which was 12,500 years old. And that was almost triple the length of time that we thought we had migrated from hunter-gatherer civilization to an actual community-based civilization.
But didn't they also there was a theory that the pyramids was actually built something like vibrations or whatever, right?
Yeah.
From actual stars.
Yeah, so if you go in, it'll hold, and I forget what it is. It's like an E flat or something throughout the entirety. As wind blows through, an E flat is constantly playing in the pyramids, does that mean anything? I don't know. but it's interesting. Somebody should research it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about that we may have missed?
Actually, I think there is something you missed, Justin. I wanted to talk about, or you can chime in and talk about, how the 12 disciples of the Bible play in with the 12 zodiac signs in astrology.
Did leave that part out.
You did leave that out.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about how, the Bible and all religions really take bits and pieces from previous religions, and those previous religions took the stars and the planets as their roadmap. And so I think that was one of the most convincing pieces of evidence for me that like the Bible is pretty much based off of astrology, was that there's 12 zodiac signs and there's 12 disciples. And Capricorn, a zodiac known for being the leader, is actually the sign Jesus would be. So I think that's kind of funny.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it lines up pretty
I'd never heard that.
Yeah, I've never heard that either.
Yeah.
That's good stuff right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess with all this, I just hope that people don't fear from this and that they have an open mind and that they'll, hey, if it's something that can make them better, or they feel like they're not their true selves and they feel like something's missing, don't be afraid to, like, I remember my mom telling me, like witchcraft and the occult and all this it's from Satan. Don't look at it. And I think that's why they don't want us to look at it, because we're kind of taking the power back and knowing how to create our realities, the realities that we want. So, I just encourage people to open their minds, and if they want to look at it.
If our listeners do want to look into it, what's your suggestion for something to read, or a podcast or website? Like for somebody that's interested in what we're talking about tonight, where are you going to send them?
I would say the first book would be the Kabbalion, because it's got 7 principles that talk about all these things. Mentalism first, but and once you go through them, like the correspondence, and you start seeing these things in nature, and like Holly said, I try to look to nature as my spiritual guide. As far as if kind of like what they did back in the day, looking at the sun and the stars, and kind of looking at nature. I mean, if you look at the tree, there's the tree of life, and there's so many aspects to what we're talking about. This could go on for 10 hours. But once you start diving into it, you'll start seeing how things align and line up, and hopefully it.
So is there a specific like podcast you listen to regarding this stuff?
I listen to a lot of, so Neville Goddard is more of like for manifesting things. But Manly P. Hall's got a great book. It's like the hidden teachings of all ages, I believe. He's a 33-degree Mason. It's funny how do you see a lot of these elites know this knowledge. Like when you look at the Vatican, and like they know this secret knowledge, but it's not being told. So it's I would say the Kabbalion, Neville Goddard, things like that.
Yeah. And if you want to see something to really trip you out, look at a picture of the creation of David, the painting, right? Leonardo da Vinci, where they're like touching the fingers. Mm-hmm. Look at that and compare it to Orion Nebula, right?
Yes.
Overlapping. Look it up on YouTube. There's hundreds of videos overlapping that painting specifically with Orion Nebula, and it matches up perfect. And you can see it when you look at Orion Nebula. You can see like the picture.
So it's
really cool.
So people would be like, well, how's that even possible? So I believe, and the only way it could be possible is that his mind, is his consciousness or subconscious was seeing that Orion Nebula as he's painting. I mean, it's crazy how it lines up. You overlay it, and it just matches perfectly. Mm-hmm. It's like one of those, there's probably more than 6 coincidences there.
Or 3 now.
And so Holly, if somebody wants to like learn more about Wiccan and just what being a witch, and I'm assuming a warlock for men, or no?
I think
or is it just
I think
witches?
you're just Yeah,
Or
you could be
wizards?
a warlock. If you want to go by warlock, absolutely.
I don't know. I'm just throwing that out
Or
there.
wizard. I would just call you Wiccan if you're
Okay.
a person.
And so where would somebody go to other than like their local library? Is there any like podcasts? Is there any?
Oh yeah. So one of my favorite podcasts is called Witch Bitch Amateur Hour. It's
Love
these
that.
two awesome ladies. Shout out to you girls. They talk about so many things. Like they talk a lot about like ghost adventures, spiritual stuff. They talk about rituals, spells, cleansing, all sorts of things. They're moms. They have husbands, but they're sisters, and they do a podcast together. So Witch Bitch Amateur Hour, look them up.
That's
They're
awesome.
really good.
I'm looking that one up.
Yeah, sounds
sure.
interesting.
Well, we really do appreciate you both coming on today. And I know that there was a little bit of reluctancy to come on, but I do appreciate you, coming on either way. So I thought it was a good podcast.
Yeah.
You did great, Justin.
Try no. So just Ancient Aliens is my favorite show. So
I love
guys-
that guy too. I'm talking about the meme. You never seen that meme for the Ancient
with his
Aliens?
hair.
Yeah, the dude with the crazy hair.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Dude, that has got the best, like they talk about the pyramids, all these things that like you can't really still explain. It's like you could probably do 10 shows on things that they talk, what is it, Easter Island, all these different things. It obviously it looked to me like they were aligning things with, the stars and that there was frequencies and things being used. So things that we still don't know about, but I think kind of going down this path, you can start to discover some of these things. So
Excellent.
It's interesting.
All right. Well, with that, Brian, I think that's going to be a wrap on this one.
It's a great episode. I appreciate you guys coming out. It was interesting. I like hearing about topics I'm not familiar with. It's pretty cool.
Well, thanks for having us.
thank
It was
you.
really fun.
Thank you guys.
All right. Until next time, keep your mind open, your eyes on the sky. You never know what's going to fly by.
And with that one, we'll catch you on the next one.